Hi, and welcome back to another episode of the History of Fan Anime. I'm your host, William Tao, and in today's episode, another one of those great episodes you always like, is another interview. And today's I'm going to interview my friend Richard, who's been a long time, it's a long time friend that sort of got in really early when I just started, my getting into anime and that kind of stuff, she's get into the various different stories of that. But again, before I begin, I want to remind people to go down below, click like, click subscribe. Yeah, definitely, even just doing something simple as hitting like, really does help the YouTube algorithm. Again, now my friend Richard here, okay, I'll just warn you in advance, okay. He is, very knowledgeable and resourceful. He very touches on a lot of different topics and that kind of stuff, and is knowledgeable of a whole bunch of different fields, including computer tech, and he has a lot of experiences in different things. He has very broad range of views and very interesting, some really far ideas and theories and concepts, which a lot of people don't think about. So he's a really good person to talk about different ideas and bounce ideas off of. But there's one thing that I'll tell you, warn you right away. He's not afraid to give his opinion, and he doesn't pull punches. Okay, so if you want, if he believes in something, or likes to talk about something, has a view on particular something, he won't hide or candy coated in any way. So I'm gonna have to be a little interesting because again, this is YouTube, so I may actually have to make a special version for the Patreon just because some of his the things are really um, you know riveting, as it were, and might be even too hot for YouTube. So you were warned. All right. So without further delay, let's get into the interview with Richard.
More of as we talked about this before, more as a revelation to your personality and character for those people that don't know you out there, right?
Mm-hmm.
Maybe through a fun method or a gonzo method, right?
Sure. Right.
So I'm going to ask you some questions, and of course, it's off the top of my head, and we're going to preface it that it's going to be strange questions, which will be provocative and compelling. So, when you were born and where you lived, what did the town you lived in, which I know what it is, but what did it remind you of, equivalent to a Japanese place in an anime?
Interesting.
What did it remind you of the most? And how did you feel as a character living in that place?
Okay, so Richard starts off with a fairly interesting question. So he asks me, okay, well, where was I born? Where was I raised, sort of thing, right? And I've mentioned it many times that I've grew up in a very small town called Prince George. As a matter of fact, I actually when I was writing that, my inspiration for my novels is based on that. So again, if you want to really get a sort of a feel of that small town feel, that's what I use in my novels. So again, go into Amazon and have a check out of the books that are available there. The Walter Chronicles, and I'm currently working on volume 5 on that one right now. So do check that out. But yeah, so I grew up in a small town called Prince George, and even now probably only has just a little bit over 100,000 people. It is a small resource-based town, so most of the people in that kind of stuff work there. Work in forestry and or in government services, relating to forestry or transportation or something like that, because it's in the middle of the province, and it's a big major transportation hub for both highway and air and rail. Okay, so how was that gonna be the same as kind of what kind of an anime type of thing, and then a character from that anime that I feel that I might be really can relate to, or that kind of stuff. That I mean, as much as I'd like to, to try to interject one of my favorite sort of animes or anything, or try to look up what what a small town anime would be like. I think the one that sort of hits to my mind that I can be comfortable with answering with is it sort of reminds me of Mobile Suit or Police Patlabor. Okay, and the reason why I choose Patlabor is because you know um, obviously the police force station is part of the larger metropolitan Tokyo police area, right? But the actual police area, right, is in the reclaimed lands. Basically, the landfill that's in the end that they made, and they basically paved it over and made it into SV2. Now the reason why I kind of say that and how Prince George is because it's basically a valley. Okay, it's caused the valley, which is created by the Fraser, the junction of the Fraser and then the Chaco rivers. They meet and go through Prince George, and basically the valley is carved by that river. And most of the town and a lot of the suburbs are just cut into the sides of the mountain, and basically become our basically suburbs and that kind of stuff. So in many ways, it's the same way. We're terracing and reclaiming a lot of land in that respect for that. The other thing that I think sort of really comes to mind is that although I can't imagine what it would be probably like to live where the SV2 is, but being reclaimed land, i.e. Used to be a garbage dump. I'm pretty sure it probably releases a lot of methane gas and that kind of stuff from the rotting garbage underneath. I would say Prince George in many ways was like that back in the day. Prince George was a really big pulp and paper manufacturing hub. So I know that just across the river, on the other side of the river, right by my house, there's this huge smokestack, which they use as which is connected to the pulp and paper mill, and that thing, spews out this really kind of foul smelling, sort of very moist vapor, moist, kind of, because obviously it's in the process when they use when they're burning stuff and they're basically off gassing all the chemicals to make paper. So in many ways, yeah, it would be a very unpleasant sort of smell all day long. And of course, you sort of get used to it, and some days are worse, especially when it gets really hot, and some days get worse than others. But that's sort of one of the things I said. So I guess, yeah. So in that respect, I would say that the Patlabor, the SV2 base is sort of in that respect. Again. Other things like there's not much you can do because you're too far away from anything else. I.e., that's the same idea with SV2. Right? It's you can't just walk to the main town. You actually have to take a bike or the bus or transport to get it to there because you're far enough away from the actual town per se, the word, right? I guess the same way how an airport is too, right? And so that's how I feel was when I was in Prince George, because I said there's really nothing much you can do in the town. Sure, you take the bike, right around to that. I can probably go from one end of, let's say, Foothills all the way over to the other end, close to close to the one junction of the Chaco River there. On bike, I could probably do that in 30 minutes, right? And likewise, so that's that's north south, and if I went east west, I can probably go from, let's say, Pine Center Mall all the way to about the other side of the Chaco Bridge. Okay, again, probably about 30 minutes. I could probably do that on a bike. So we're not talking a very big area, and judging by how big the practice yard and everything else, and of course the hangars and that kind of stuff at SV2, I'd say that would be probably a reasonable estimation of size as well. So. So that would be the anime and the scenario. Now, who do I think I would be probably closest to? Well, I guess if you look at the anime in this respect, I'd probably be somewhat kind of like Kanaka Kanti. I mean, sure, all the characters in this thing are Asian and that kind of stuff, and I make this sort of note in my novel too. But one of the things that I've always felt when I was in school and that kind of stuff going thing is that I always felt like myself I was getting signaled out, right? Because again, Asian, even at this, well, talking about the 70s, right, going into the 80s, not being like an MTV child, right? The Asian community was a really very, very, very small community, right? So, I'm one of, let's say, when going through high school, there was like 7 other Asians, including the Japanese and the Indians, East Indians, in the entire school, right? So, we're 1,000 plus something kids, even in our grad class, 400 grade 12s, I was probably, 5? Okay. Maybe 10 if you include as the Japanese and the East Indians, but really very, very few of us in the community, right? So, and we've always got left out of everything, right? Nobody wanted us to go to the parties unless we brought stuff, and so I knew that I got into a couple parties and that kind of stuff just because I had a friend that lived across the street, and he had an older brother. He had also an older sister, right? And the deal was, hey. You slip them $20. They'll go out to the liquor store. They'll get you like a big case of beer. They kept the change as their tip, but then with this is your ticket to get into the parties, right? And of course, not quite graduating out of high school, that was a really big thing. So anyways, just so it's the same way how Kanaka is a little bit different, right? Because she had a big part of her education in New York and that kind of stuff. So I think I can identify with her character quite a lot.
Leaning from that, and that's just checking in different directions. So one of the things that's very endemic to any culture is food.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, so if you had to either eat one Japanese thing for the rest of your life, nothing else, or you had to pick one food that was eaten often by a character in one of the animes, what would that be for you?
Oh my god. Okay, so this is a kind of an interesting question, but it's probably not the answer that you'd expect from a person who likes anime. One of the sort of thoughts about the people that like anime is, again, because you want to get immersed into Japanese culture, you want to get into the food and the music and all that kind of stuff. But surprisingly enough, I actually don't like a lot of Japanese food, and I'll tell you why. At home, I get a lot of Chinese food. So again, you're pretty much used to rice, you're pretty much used to noodle soups and that kind of thing. So when I go to a restaurant to go eat and that kind of stuff, one of the first things I'll avoid and stay away from is essentially Chinese restaurants and Japanese restaurants, just because for the most part I'm not interested in eating something that has more rice. Okay, so so things like and one of the biggest things I really hate is actually I hate sushi. Especially the ones that have anything having to do with fish, because it's something that you already have at home. Like I eat, the being in an Asian family, that's pretty much your staple food that you eat every day. You basically eat rice. Okay, rice was everything, right? Or noodles with everything, right? Whether it's stir fried, whether it's you're making pan fried. Whether it's in a soup like wonton min, or something like that, or fried rice, anything like that. Yeah, congee even, right? Those are all variations of using rice in dishes and that kind of stuff, as in plate style, soup, whatever. I don't want to eat that when I go out to eat, right? So, most likely that's why I prefer to eat, in a Western restaurant or a Mexican restaurant or, Greek or anything else like that. Just something else, right? So, for the most part, yeah. So when I think of Japanese food, again, I like sushi, especially if it has fish in it. Even the standard California rolls, which is the normal one I usually would order. Um, and that's what most people, have, like on the menu and that kind of stuff. I mean, even that one, I don't like the avocado, and I'll actually sit there and I'll use the two, like the chopstick, and I'll actually intentionally punch it out of the sushi, and actually, let it push and push all the way through the other side, and let it fall out, and then I'll eat the rest of it. Okay. So basically, dishes that are very similar to like Chinese ones, which basically have a rice or a noodle base. That's sort of one of the things I don't want to go to. Go when I go out to eat at a Japanese restaurant or something like that. That's probably one of the things I don't want to order. Right. So basically, that'll eliminate all the the donburis or in the the rice bowls or anything like that. That basically eliminates all the noodle bowls. So that's like udons, ramens, sobas, anything like that. Just forget it. Just because it's essentially the same, right? So and one of the things I also don't like is I don't like miso soup either. So. So in terms of Japanese food, it's not a lot of selection there. That's not to say that I don't like any Japanese food. I mean, if you went to one of those old all you can eat Japanese sushi places like Richmond Sushi or like Top Gun or any of those type of places, I'd still order things like the tempura, tonkatsu, which is the beef cutlets. Karaage is usually my go-to, and that's fried chicken type of idea. And of course any sort of teriyaki, so whatever happens to be teriyaki, beef or chicken or whatever, that's fine. Of course, usually if you get the teriyaki, then you get like rice or something to eat it with. Now, if I had to select one sort of food that that I'd rather that I'd have to make, or a staple around, my odd answer would be probably okay, because obviously the answer could be what do I like eating the most of, and that would be just sort of a flavor thing. And of course, if you eat more of it, then you probably don't you're probably gonna lose your taste or your favorites for it, right? So it's the concept of, let's say you like ice cream, but if you ate ice cream every day and it's the same flavor ice cream every day, then you probably get sick and tired of it right? But if I had to, I'd probably pick something like natto, and that's the soybean based sort of thing. Not because it has a great taste anyway. By itself, it probably doesn't taste like like much of anything, right? It's always usually the flavor packets and that kind of stuff and whatnot that usually you make, or the sauce that you make to make it taste like anything. But I'm thinking more of the the nutritional value, the enzymes that it contains. I'm being obviously a person that has a heart condition. It definitely would improve my longevity, as well as reduce the chances of any catastrophic failures with the heart. So in that respect, that's what that would pick if that was what I had to get stuck with eating. Okay. Okay, I hope you found that really interesting. Again, I do plan to do more different episodes with Richard, because he has a lot to to comment on. And again, if you have any sorts of topics you want to suggest, or you want more elaboration on something, maybe to actually spend an episode talking about a particular concept, by all means, leave a message below, and then I'll make sure the next time I touch base with them, we'll get more on that. Right? So until next time, I will see you again.